Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I've got an exciting little tutorial for you. I'm going to be showing you how to create this greeting card in Procreate and how to print directly from Procreate as well. Now this is a Father's Day themed greeting card, however it can be totally adapted in any way you want. So if you'd like to do something for Valentine's Day or a birthday or just because, then you totally can as well. I'll be leaving links in the description below for everything I use for this tutorial, and I'm also going to leave a link for a download of my Procreate file so you can have a look at how I've created everything and you can have a play with the file that I've created, or you can create your own. So let's just dive right into the tutorial and get started. I can't wait to share this with you. So the first thing that we need to do is set up our canvas. Now, I normally do all of my greeting cards at A6 size, which means it's an A5 piece of card that's folded in half. However, when creating something in Procreate, I always recommend upsizing your canvas. This is because Procreate works in pixels. So if you were to create something this size and you ended up wanting it this size, then it would become pixelated because you're increasing it in size. So as this is a greeting card, I'm probably never going to do it bigger than an A5 greeting card, so that is A4 folded in half. Therefore, I'm going to set up an A4 canvas. So take your pen, click on the plus sign in the top right corner, and then I do already have a canvas set up for this. However, I'm going to create a new one with you so you can see what I'm doing. So if you tap this little plus folder up here, and then we have a few different options. So firstly, we've got the dimensions, and I want to work in millimeters. And I know that A4 is going to be 297 wide and then 210 high. I've also got the DPI at 300. This is giving me a maximum of 57 layers. Next, we're going to go over to the color profile option. Now, Procreate automatically works in RGB. However, there is an option to change it to CMYK. Working in CMYK on Procreate for anything that you're printing is a really good idea, as this gives a more accurate colour range for when you're printing. RGB colours tend to be a lot brighter, and it's something that CMYK colours that are found in your printer may not be able to create. So I like to work in CMYK, and then there's nothing else you really need to worry about in terms of these options. What you can do is change the canvas name, and I'm just going to call this A4 CMYK. So now click Create. So as you can see, I've created a landscape canvas. If you ever wanted it to be portrait, you can just flick it around and that makes it portrait. So first thing we are going to do is we're going to set up our card. So for a greeting card, you fold down the middle here, and then this side will be your design, and this side will be the back. So firstly, what I'm going to do is add in my logo. I've already sent my logo to this iPad, so all I need to do is press the spanner icon up here, and then we're going to click Add under Actions, and then Insert Photo. So now my logo has been added in, I just want to resize it. So I'm making sure that Uniform is selected here, and I'm just going to take the corner and resize it down. One thing to bear in mind when you're resizing on Procreate is if you go really small and then later on you decide that you actually want it to be bigger, can you see it's now become pixelated? So you need to be really careful when resizing your images. What I like to do is just copy this original layer just in case. So what you can do is tap on the layers option, swipe on the layer, and then tap duplicate. I'm then just going to hide one of these so it's out of the way. So now I'm going to select the visible logo, and I'm just going to shrink it down, not all the way, but I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit. Next, I want to add some text. So I just want to add my website in basically. So if you click the spanner icon at the top and then add text, you now have this text option. So I'm just going to put my website in. So I've just changed it so you can now see what I'm writing. Link lettering. .co.uk, and you can see it's just broken the line a little bit, so all you need to do for that is just pull out this side bit and it pops it all on one line. Now I want to resize this as well, so I'm just moving it down to here and moving it down there. So now I've got my logo and text on here. I want to make it central to half of this A4 canvas. So how do we go about doing that? I normally do stuff like this in InDesign, which is a lot easier to snap to different guides. However, there is a clever way you can find the quarter, half and quarter points for this card. So if you tap the spanner icon at the top, and then we go to Canvas under Actions, you then have Drawing Guide. So I'm just going to turn the Drawing Guide on, and then I'm going to Edit Drawing Guide. So I've got it on the 2D grid. And if we go to grid size, which is the third one along, you can change the size of it. So if I go all the way along, can you see it split it into quadrants? So we've got the halfway point of the canvas directly in the middle, both vertically and horizontally. So what you could do is you could work like this, and then you could try the central point between this point here and this point here. However, another option is just to bring the grid size down ever so slightly. And you can see these lines are starting to appear. And what I want to do is get to a point where I can just see these lines on the outside, and I'm just going to pull it back. So sometimes when you lift the pen off your screen, it jumps. So what I'm going to do is just memorize this number here. So it's 875 pixels. So if you tap on there, you can then do 875. So now I've got a grid in place, and I can see that this is a halfway point of the back part of the card, and then this is a halfway point of the front side. So I'm just going to click Done. And don't worry, these guides won't print. They're just there to help you line everything up. So firstly, I'm going to align my text. So I'm just going to click the selection tool, and then I just want to move it so these two middle anchor points sit directly in this line. I think I'm just going to make this text a little bit smaller as well. And then I'm going to do the same with my logo. So to select that, I'm just tapping on the layer option up here, tapping on the logo that's visible, and then I'm going to just resize. So for this back option, you could add your logo, you could just add your name, you could add a cute little message. You could obviously add things like your Instagram handle as well. But adding your details onto the back just makes the card feel a little bit more professional. Okay, so I'm really happy with how that back is looking now. So now it's time to do the front. So as I've mentioned, this is going to be a Father's Day card. And before I start doing the final design, I'm just going to sketch out a little idea just to see if I can get the placement right. So firstly, we are going to tap on the layers panel, and we're going to create a new layer. And then I'm going to go into the paintbrush section, tap on sketching, and I like the peppermint pencil. It's just nice and easy to use for sketching. So we're going to be staying in this half of the canvas, but this is just rough and ready. It doesn't need to be too tidy. Okay, so we've got a really rough sketch now. I've just done the message, "You're the best," and I've popped Happy Father's Day underneath. So if you want to do something different, you could always put Happy Birthday or I love you. So this card can be completely adapted to whatever the occasion. So next we need to start creating our final artwork. So firstly, what I'm going to do is take this layer. I'm just going to call this Sketch. I like to rename my layers just so it doesn't get too messy and I can easily see what layer I need to get to. So I'm just going to rename that logo. So for my sketch layer, I'm just going to tap on this little N, and this brings up the opacity. And I'm just going to bring that down just so I can still see it, but it's not too distracting. Next, we're going to create another layer. So what I'm going to do initially is just work in black, and I'm going to do each word on a different layer. So for the brush, I'm going to be using in Calligraphy, scrolling down to the brush pen. I've got a few extra brushes in here that I've created, but the brush pen is a brush that comes with Procreate. So I'm just focusing on the word your, and I quite like to tilt my canvas just so it feels like I'm writing naturally on a piece of paper. So just like normal brush calligraphy with a pen, I'm pressing hard when I go down and I'm going lighter when I go up. So we've got the your. Now I'm going to create a new layer for the. And the reason I am doing different layers for each word is so I can easily move them around if they just need adjusting slightly. And now I am just doing another layer for the word best. So now we've got all of our calligraphy layers in there, but I just want to move this the a little bit. So I'm just going to tap on the layer and then I'm going to tap this arrow icon up the top left and I'm just going to move it ever so slightly. So one thing you can do is you can tap just a little bit either side and that just moves it ever so slightly. That's a little bit better. And then I just want to make sure this is sitting centrally to this half of the canvas. So what you can do is you can select all three layers. So make sure one of them is selected and then just swipe across on the other two and you can now see all three are selected. So if you click on this arrow, you can now see that we've got this bounding box all the way around and we can match up these anchor points to the middle. Now I'm not lining it the middle horizontally because I've got a little bit of text at the bottom here. So I'm just lining it up centrally like that. And that is perfect. Next I want to hand letter this text here. So I am going to do that on a new layer. I'm going to do all three words on the same layer though. And for this, I am going to go into calligraphy and I'm going to use the monoline pen. Now I want to make sure that the letters are perfectly in line with each other. So I'm just going to go up to the spanner tool and then I'm going to press edit grid size and then I'm just going to make it smaller and I'm going to make it so it matches roughly the text that I've written. So you can see that this sits roughly in line. And now we can do our uppercase letters. I don't want this to be too perfect. I want them to be roughly the same height. But at the end of the day, this is hand lettering. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to look like a font. So all the letters can look slightly different. Again, I've just got my canvas tilted a little bit and that just helps me write a little bit more naturally. Okay, so now I have the text in here. I just want to line it up to the middle. So I'll just need to go back up to my canvas and edit the drawing guide. And I just remember that this needs to be 875. Done. So now I've got this grid system back and I'm just going to click on done. And now I'm just going to hide the sketch layer so I can see that this is called sketch, so I can turn it off. I'm just going to change this to greeting. So that could be whatever message you want it to be. Now I just want to line up this greeting to the center. So I'm just using the selection tool by clicking on the arrow again and then lining up these two anchor points to the line. So let me just zoom in so you can see that. I think I've just made these guides a little bit dark. So you can change the color of your guides if you need to. So I'm just going to make them a little bit darker for you so you can see them. So just lining it up there. And I now know that is central to this half of the canvas. So now I've got all of this set up, I can see that there's a couple of tweaks I'd just like to make to some of these letters. So firstly, this best, I just want to add a little bit more flourish onto this B. So if you're editing any of this text, then make sure you're on the correct layer. So I'm just going to click on best, and then I'm going back to my brush pen, and I'm just going to zoom in, and I just want to bring it round a bit more. And then I just want to make sure this Y that crosses the T in your just goes more smoothly into this H. So I'm just taking the eraser tool and I'm just going in and erasing that. Okay, so now I'm really happy with that. However, one thing I am a little bit concerned about is some of this design might just be a little bit too close to the edge. So what I'm going to do is select your, the, and best, and then I'm tapping the arrow icon up here, and I'm just going to decrease it in size a little bit. Now remember, if you decrease anything in size and then change your mind later on and have to increase it, then it will become pixelated. So if you do change your mind, then you may have to just undo quite a lot, or it's worth copying these layers. I am pretty happy with how that looks, so I'm just going to click off, and we have our design. I think I just want to move it up a little bit more. So now it's time to colour this in. So I'm going to keep this nice and simple. I think I just want it all to be one colour. So firstly, let's select a nice colour. I think that blue is quite nice. And I now want to fill this text in with that blue. So the easiest way to do that is to click on your layer panel, use 2 fingers and swipe across. You are then turning alpha lock onto all of these layers. So if I show you a little closer, you can see that there's like a checker grid here and not on this one. But if I swipe across, this now has a checker grid. So alpha lock essentially means that it locks where the artwork already is and you can't paint anywhere else. So if I take best for an example and start painting in the layer, can you see it's painting in where the letters are, but it's not painting outside of those letters. If I were to turn off alpha lock by swiping 2 fingers across and then start painting, you can see it just paints all over the layer. Another way to turn alpha lock on is tapping on the layer and then clicking alpha lock. And when you tap on the layer, you can see that alpha lock has a tick next to it. So you could just sit here and colour this in, and actually that's quite therapeutic. But another quick way of filling in this text is by clicking on the layer and then clicking fill layer. So now we can see that best is filled, and I'm just going to do the same with the and the same with your. And then for the Happy Father's Day, I just want to do a slightly different colour. So I'm just going to put that on alpha lock, make sure it's selected, and then I'm going to do a darker blue and fill that layer in. So now what I want to do is add a drop shadow to these letters. So to do that, I'm going to need to group all of these layers together. However, I don't want to do that and then change my mind on the position later and have to redraw everything. So first thing that I'm going to do is duplicate all of these layers. I really recommend doing this so you're working in a non-destructive way. I'm then going to group the duplicated layers together, and I'm just going to tap on best and click merge down, and now best and the are merged together, and now I'm clicking on the merge down, so we've got all 3 merged together. We do still have the 2 copies, so I'm just going to turn off the layers that are individual. So if I do change my mind later on and I just want to move the to a different position, I can without having to redraw everything. So I'm just going to rename this grouped layer Calligraphy. And now I want to add a drop shadow. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this calligraphy layer. So now I've got 2 here, and I'm just going to take the bottom one and rename shadow. So now I want to fill this shadow in, and I'm going to do it with a darker colour. So I'm going to take a dark blue, and then I'm tapping on the layer and clicking fill layer. Now currently it's sitting behind the dark blue layer, so what I want to do is tap my selection, and I'm just going to tap the bottom right corner. This gradually moves it down. Next I want to add a blur to this shadow layer, but before we do that we need to remove alpha lock. Alpha Lock will prevent it from blurring because it's locking it to that part of the artwork. Next, we want to tap on the magic wand tool up here, which is our adjustments panel, and then click on Gaussian blur. I've selected layer, and then what this does is if I tap and then slide, can you see it's adding a little bit of a blur to that shadow. So I'm just going to take it to about 5%, and then I'm just going to drop the opacity of this shadow layer. So I'm clicking on the layer panel and clicking on the N on the shadow, and then I'm just reducing the opacity. So can you see now that this has made it just pop out of the page a little? So there's just a really subtle shadow line going on there. I just want to add a couple of highlights to this text as well. So I'm just selecting white. I'm going to click add, and then I'm going to go to the calligraphy pen, and we'll use the brush pen again, just so we can get some natural strokes. But I'm going to bring it right down. And I'm just going in and adding a few little highlights. Okay, so we now have our super simple greeting card design. Now it's time for printing, and I'm going to show you how you can print directly in Procreate. To print this card, I'm going to be using some super smooth 300 GSM white cardstock. I will leave a link in the description below for where I got this from. It is great for greeting cards. The printer I'm using is the Canon Pixma IP8750. It's a really good quality printer for printing greeting cards, and it can also go up to A3 if you're interested in doing some prints. So to print directly from Procreate, firstly we press the spanner button at the top, and then we want to click on share. I'm then going to click on best for PDF quality, and it's just exporting. Now when you scroll down, you will have the option for print. So I'm just clicking on print, and then I'm going to select my printer. So you want to make sure that your printer's already set up on your iPad. My printers are wireless, which makes it super easy. So I'm just clicking on the Canon one, and then I'm just going to click print. So now we have printed our design, and it looks so good. And you can see by using the CMYK colors on Procreate, it's super accurate to how it will print in real life. So next we just need to fold this in half so we can make it into an actual greeting card. To fold this in half, I'm going to be using my Crafter's Companion Top Score Multiboard. I use this for all of my greeting cards orders. I absolutely love this for scoring my greetings cards because, as you can see, there's different lines that adapt to different size cards. So I'm just going to take my card, and down here we have the half fold A4. So I'm just going to spin it around just to make this a little bit easier. I'm going to butt up the edge here, and it's this line I want to use. So it comes with this score tool too, so you just score along the line, making it nice and easy. This is so good if you don't buy card blanks and you just buy a normal card, but you want to do professional looking greeting cards. Next, we just fold this in half on the crease, and I'm just making sure the corners match up. And then you can use the side of this score tool just to smooth this crease down. And this is so much better than bending in half normally because you don't get too much creasing or damage the card. So here we go, a super easy greeting card for you to create in Procreate for Father's Day or any other occasion. I think this has turned out so well. As you can see, it's got my logo on the back with my web address, just making it that little bit more professional. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful and you enjoyed it. I'd absolutely love to see the greeting cards that you create. So if you do follow along this tutorial, then please do share on Instagram and tag me. It's just @blinklettering. And if you have any questions at all, then leave them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a big thumbs up because that massively helps me. And also hit that subscribe button if you want to see more tutorials like this. I'll see you again for another video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!